Most people think being nice makes you a good person, a good friend, or a good partner. We are taught to be polite, avoid hurting people, keep the peace, and make others feel comfortable. But what if being nice is not always the same as being kind? Sometimes, being nice can actually hurt a relationship. You stay quiet when something bothers you because you don't want an argument. You say it's okay when it isn't. You forgive someone without talking about what they did. You agree with your partner even when you strongly disagree. From the outside, all of this can look like love, patience, and understanding. But underneath it, something else may be happening. You may not be choosing kindness. You may be choosing comfort. And that difference matters. Kindness is not always about making someone feel good in the moment. Sometimes kindness means telling the truth when the truth is uncomfortable. Sometimes it means setting a boundary instead of saying yes. Sometimes it means having the difficult conversation you've been avoiding. We often confuse being nice with being kind because both can look similar on the surface, but they can lead to very different relationships. Being nice can protect the moment. Being kind can protect the relationship. And once you understand that difference, you may start looking at your own relationships in a completely different way. You may begin to notice that some of the things you call love are actually fear, people-pleasing, or a desire to avoid conflict. The real question is not, am I being nice? The real question is, am I doing what is truly good for this relationship, even when it feels uncomfortable? Subscribe to Varry Stories now and enjoy The Problem with Being Nice as we journey ahead. People often assume that being nice automatically means being kind. If you are polite, patient, forgiving, and easy to deal with, people may see you as a good partner. And there is nothing wrong with those things. Being polite matters. Being patient matters. Forgiveness matters. But being nice and being kind are not always the same thing. Being nice is often about keeping things comfortable. It can mean avoiding words that might upset someone, staying quiet during an argument, or saying what the other person wants to hear. Sometimes, being nice is simply about not wanting to make the situation worse. Kindness is different. Kindness is about doing what is helpful and honest, even when it is uncomfortable. Imagine your partner does something that keeps hurting you. Maybe they keep canceling plans at the last minute. You are upset, but when they ask if everything is okay, you smile and say, "It's fine." That may sound peaceful. It may even sound loving. But is it kind? You may think you are protecting their feelings. In reality, you may be protecting yourself from an uncomfortable conversation. Because if you tell them how you really feel, they might become angry. They might defend themselves. They might say you are overreacting. They might even accuse you of starting an argument. So you stay quiet. For that moment, everything feels fine. But the problem has not disappeared. It has only been pushed into the future. This is where being nice can become harmful. You can avoid a difficult conversation today and create a much bigger problem tomorrow. The same thing happens with boundaries. Someone asks you to do something you do not want to do. You are already tired, but you say yes because you do not want them to feel rejected. You keep giving your time, your energy, and your attention because saying no makes you feel guilty. People may call you kind, but sometimes you are not being kind. You are afraid of disappointing them. And there is an important difference between the two. Kindness says, "I care about you, but I also need to be honest with you." People-pleasing says, "I will hide what I really feel so you will not be upset with me." One builds honesty. The other can slowly destroy it. This is why some relationships look peaceful from the outside, but feel exhausting on the inside. There may be very few arguments because one person keeps swallowing their feelings. There may be no obvious conflict because every difficult subject is avoided. But silence does not always mean peace. Sometimes silence is just an argument that has not happened yet. Think about a couple who keeps avoiding the same problem. One person feels ignored. The other person does not want to hear about it anymore. So they both decide to move on. For a few days, everything feels normal. They laugh. They talk. They spend time together. But the person who was hurt has not really moved on. They are still carrying the feeling. Then something small happens. A late reply. A forgotten plan. A simple comment. Suddenly, the old pain comes back. The argument may look like it is about the small thing that just happened, but it is usually about everything that was never discussed before. This is why avoiding conflict can create the exact conflict you were trying to prevent. And this does not mean every feeling needs to become a serious conversation. Not every small problem needs a long discussion. Healthy relationships still need patience, timing, and wisdom. The point is that there is a difference between choosing peace and avoiding the truth. Sometimes peace comes from solving the problem. Sometimes peace only comes from pretending there is no problem. That is the uncomfortable part about kindness. Real kindness may require courage. You may have to say, "That hurt me." You may have to say, "I don't agree with you." You may have to say, "I cannot keep doing this." You may even have to tell someone you love that their behavior is hurting the relationship. None of those things feel very nice, but they can be deeply kind because you are giving the relationship a chance to become honest. And honesty gives both people something important, a chance to change. Without honesty, your partner may never understand what is wrong. They may think everything is fine because you keep saying it is fine. So they continue. You become more frustrated. They become more confused. And slowly, both people begin to feel disconnected. The strange part is that neither person may be trying to hurt the other. One person is afraid of conflict. The other person does not know there is a problem. And the relationship gets weaker because the truth never gets enough space to be heard. That is why what looks like love on the surface can sometimes be avoidance underneath. Being nice can protect someone's feelings for a moment. Being kind can help them understand the truth. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is not make someone comfortable. It is give them the honesty they need to understand what is really happening. But why do people behave this way? Why do we sometimes choose being nice when we know that being honest would be better? The answer is often fear. Some people are afraid of rejection. Others are afraid of conflict. Some fear being left, while others are afraid that speaking honestly will change the way someone sees them. So they learn to keep people happy. They say yes when they want to say no. They apologize even when they are not wrong. They hide their anger. They ignore things that hurt them. They forgive before they are ready. And slowly, being nice becomes a way to feel safe. This is where the problem becomes deeper. A person may not be trying to control their partner or create a fake relationship. They may simply be trying to avoid losing the person they love. Imagine someone who grew up believing that disagreement always leads to rejection. When their partner becomes upset, they immediately try to make everything okay. They say, "I'm sorry." They agree. They stop talking about the issue. Their goal is not to solve the problem. Their goal is to stop the tension. For a short time, it works. The argument ends. The room becomes quiet. Everyone feels better. But the real problem is still there. And when this happens again and again, something changes. The person who keeps giving in may begin to feel unseen. They may start thinking, "Why am I always the one who has to understand?" At the same time, the other person may begin to believe that everything is fine because no one tells them otherwise. This creates a strange cycle. One person avoids honesty because they fear conflict. The other person receives no honest feedback, so they do not understand the damage. Then the first person becomes more frustrated. The second person becomes more confused, and the distance between them grows. This is why being too nice can sometimes create resentment. Resentment does not always begin with hatred. Sometimes it begins with too many unspoken feelings. You wanted to be understanding, so you stayed quiet. You wanted to be patient, so you accepted it again. You wanted to be loving, so you ignored your own needs. You wanted to keep the relationship together, so you stopped telling the truth about how you felt. Eventually, you may start feeling like your partner does not appreciate you. But your partner may be thinking, "I thought everything was okay." Both people can be hurting while both believe they are doing their best. This is why it is dangerous to make one person the villain too quickly. Sometimes the person who keeps asking for more is acting from insecurity. Sometimes the person who keeps giving is acting from fear. Sometimes one person fears being abandoned, while the other fears being controlled. Both people may love each other, but love alone does not remove fear. And fear can change the way love is expressed. A person who fears rejection may become a people pleaser. A person who fears losing control may become demanding. A person who fears conflict may become silent. A person who fears being alone may accept behavior they should challenge. Different fears can create different relationship problems. This is why the real issue is not always, who is right? Sometimes the better question is, what fear is controlling this behavior? That question changes everything. Because once you understand the fear, you can understand the behavior without automatically excusing it. Understanding someone does not mean accepting everything they do. You can understand why someone struggles with conflict and still tell them that avoiding every difficult conversation is hurting the relationship. You can understand why someone needs reassurance and still explain that constant reassurance cannot replace trust. You can understand why someone struggles to say no and still encourage them to set healthy boundaries. Kindness does not mean removing every uncomfortable feeling. Sometimes kindness means allowing a healthy amount of discomfort so that something important can finally change. And this applies to yourself too. Being kind to yourself does not mean always choosing what feels easy. Sometimes being kind to yourself means admitting that a relationship is hurting you. Sometimes it means saying no without feeling guilty. Sometimes it means accepting that someone may be disappointed with your boundary. Sometimes it means realizing that keeping everyone happy is not the same as having a healthy relationship. This is where many people get confused. They think kindness means giving more. More time, more chances, more forgiveness, more understanding, more patience. But sometimes the kindest thing you can give is a clear boundary. A boundary tells another person where you stand. It does not have to be cruel. It does not have to be angry. It simply says, this is what I can accept, and this is what I cannot. That kind of honesty can feel uncomfortable at first. But discomfort is not always a sign that something is wrong. Sometimes discomfort is the price of growth. A relationship that can survive honest conversations becomes stronger because both people know where they stand. They do not have to guess. They do not have to pretend. They do not have to keep reading between the lines. They can talk about what hurts. They can talk about what they need. They can disagree without believing the relationship is ending. That is a much deeper form of kindness. So the question is not simply, am I being nice to this person? The better question is, am I being honest, respectful, and helpful? Because sometimes being nice protects the moment, while kindness protects the relationship. Sometimes being nice keeps someone close, while honesty helps you discover whether the relationship is actually healthy. And sometimes what looks like kindness is really fear wearing a friendly face. The goal is not to become cold. The goal is not to stop caring about people's feelings. The goal is to understand that love does not require you to hide the truth. A healthy relationship needs warmth, but it also needs honesty. It needs patience, but it also needs boundaries. It needs forgiveness, but it also needs change. And it needs kindness, not the kind that simply makes everything feel comfortable, but the kind that gives both people a chance to become better. Because the question is never only whether you love someone. The deeper question is whether the way you show that love is helping both of you build the relationship you actually need.
I hope you understood what you watched. If not, watch again.